Hunter-gatherers would just sense that a certain place has a feeling of divine power. That somehow the way the rocks form and the way the whistles through the tree, that God lives here. And at first it was just a place. 50,000 years later, with civilization, it's a church. A few years later, it's this place, where the gods live. There's not much connection between playing drums and writing music, oddly. Drums is an instinctive, elemental participation in something. Composing is looking inside your mind and conjuring up something and creating a piece of music. Playing drums is an experience. It's not a composition, it's not an intellectual exercise. It's something that you're doing and you feel it as you do it. This is a useful instrument. It's from Bali, and it is the cheng cheng. And of all the Balinese bells that are all tuned to various pitches, this is really useful. This is like the tambourine from hell. You know, these guys here, you can cut through any band with that shit, you know. Found this in China. Pretty little instrument. You can't hit a wrong note on it. This drum set is actually like the Motown sound. If you want a different drum set, get a different room. I got it all tweaked out. This is the snare right here, in fact, that I recorded all the hits on. It is actually a Pearl, and I don't even know how it got into my collection, but it has mismatched hoops. And for some reason, every other drum didn't work, so I'll always go back to that one for stage, for the touring, as well as for the records. But finally, Tama figured out how to get exactly that sound and produced this drum, my signature series snare drum. I've been playing Tama drums for 40 years. They called me up at the NAMM show to speak about my love of Tama drums. And so my speech consisted of 40 years. Thank you. Thank you. This is my father's trumpet. It is a 1928 copper iron Con, and was sort of like the Gibson SG of its day. Very fancy. He was a session trumpet player in New York City. He played with both of the different Dorsey brothers. He played with Glenn Miller, which he considered to be a blot on his career at the time. For him, that was like pop music, you know. He was a real jazz musician. My father, when he spotted talent at an early age, had me in every form of music lesson from the very beginning. I started out in the trombone, but then when I got into the drums, he had me, he hired the drummer from the Armenian guy from the Beirut Strip Club or whatever, come and teach me how to hold my sticks right. Well, I was raised to be a jazz musician by this same father, and I was raised on wrong jazz. That's to say white big band jazz. Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, Dave Brubeck, a couple of good tunes there. Buddy Rich, of course, is the shit. Buddy Rich, big new band. Sister Sadie, was it on that album or the next album? Just the power, the majesty, the technique, everything. But right about that time, along came Jimi Hendrix, and that changed everything. Because my mother was playing Stravinsky at the time. And that's a whole other musical environment that did stick. And Ravel, Debussy, Carl Orff, Stewart Copeland, that music stuck. So when Jimi Hendrix hit, the jazz went out the window, but the Stravinsky stayed. So I'd be walking down the road with dun 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 dun, you know, with Jimi Hendrix playing guitar over it on my other ear, you know. All my other buddies, they have facial hair, their voice are broad, you know, they're like, and I was kind of late, you know, shit, you know. But purpose, I now realize, of heavy metal is that it's borrowed chest hair. Put on that, you know, Hendrix, with the big Marshall, you know, I may be a squeaky little piece of shit, but check this motherfucker out. That's what heavy metal music is for young males who aspire to adult malehood, the power that you get as a adult silverback, but is denied to the 17-year-old. There were explorers exploring Africa with Nagras, tape recorders, and I wasn't the first. I think Mick Fleetwood did a tour of Africa to find the rhythm. You know, it's sort of a pilgrimage. It's sort of like a Hajj for drummers. Actually, the roots of our culture comes from Africa. You know, the most important, you know, American cultural statement that is only American, that is fully American. You know, they got Shakespeare, they got Goethe, you know. We got our music, which comes ultimately from Africa. But I found in my search across Africa that American music was invented in America. Where I'd spent 2 months crossing Africa out in the villages trying to figure out their 19/4 compound rhythms. You know, I couldn't find any backbeat. Or how about 4 in the floor? I couldn't find, it was all really complicated. And the different regions have different versions of complication. But the main form of complication is that the music is based on a sentence. Let's go shopping now, let's go down to the mall and eat some lunch. Let's go shopping now, let's go down to the mall and eat some lunch. Let's go shopping now, let's go down and eat. That's compound meter. It's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Because it's a sentence in whatever their particular regional dialect might be. So the music is very complicated. There's no 4 on the floor like that until my night in jail in Kinshasa. It was a small visa infraction. I wasn't gun running or anything sexy like that. But they threw us in the clinker overnight, where I heard coming over the radio of the soldiers this music, Lingala, actually kind of sung in a French patois. But it's kind of 4 on the floor, blues chords played on electric guitar, and the guys singing in a completely African style, but the tools in their hands came from here. But they didn't care about where it had been. It came back and they're all dancing to it. Well, right here is a very important instrument. This drum here, across the river from Kinshasa, Zaire, after my night in the clink, I went up the Congo River where I encountered the Pygmies who made this drum way out there in the fourth world, in the triple canopy jungle, like really far removed. And they survive on elephant. And this is an elephant skin drum. In fact, you can see the skin if you look at it here. I mean, that is babar right there. But it's organic. They ate that elephant and made a damn fine drum out of his skin. I compose in Digital Performer and then score in Sibelius. Everything, I do it all in Performer. It goes through Pro Tools. And if this thing here could be reduced to like a quarter of the size, I would be even happier because I never touch it. I hit mute occasionally and that's it, which is why I have the whole James Bond thing. Mute. But if I could get rid of that, that would be just all this here for pizza. By the way, everything is fully mic'd up. I just put the whole studio in record, and everything's in record. Every square yard is recording. So when my buddies move around the room, hey, what's this? I'm picking it up somewhere. And I figured that for all my recording, I use a radio, so I haven't got earphones with wires, so I can, you know, put them on and I can go grab this and put it in front of a mic and put that away and walk around the studio and do stuff. Because, as you will see, I don't have an engineer. I actually employ the world's cheapest engineer. my goddamn self. And when my buddies come over and jam in here, there's no engineer in the room. I just hit record and we go. There's a whole different atmosphere when there's no professionals in the room. So we're jamming away. And then let's play that back. Musicians love playback. So hit playback. And while we're playing back, here, take this horn. And so pretty soon you got, in a row, da, 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 da. Anyone can, air Tower of Power. In fact, take a solo. And somebody tells these are musicians. They don't know how to play this instrument, but since they're playing something real, and then I can Foley on the notes that they would have played if they knew where to find them on this instrument. I got an incoming call from Francis Coppola one day, which led to my first film score, Rumblefish. And this is typical Francis Coppola. He hired the director of the San Francisco Ballet to choreograph the big bad gang fight scenes, which is why they're so raging. And the fight director on Rumblefish was a guy called Michael Smewin. And after the movie was said and done, I got a call from Michael Smewin, who invited me to compose a ballet for the San Francisco Ballet, probably thinking that I was going to show up with rock music. I didn't. I showed up with a score. I wrote it all on my Fairlight and showed up in San Francisco with a full orc score. It sounded like crap, most of it, a real train wreck for 20 different reasons. But there were 4 bars, and that was enough to think, well, see if I can write 8 bars that don't suck. And so from there grew this relationship with the orchestra that just trying to get this thing to do the beautiful stuff that it can do. Well, rock and roll is no preparation for this because making music to come out of speakers is a piece of cake. You fiddle with it until it sounds great. Writing a score is a whole different thing. You have to imagine what it's going to sound like when 60 guys read it. But when the guys are playing it, it's down to how much information you put on the page. Because when I was scoring films for a living, I didn't have time for that. I'd hire some guy, on the recording date, the orchestra is there, I'm dealing with the producers, and I got fish to fry. I got to keep everything. No, that's sounding a little hazard. Okay, like tacit trumpets, bars 37 through 41. It needs to have everything. Okay, timpani. I'll see a line you got there, play that. Okay, thank you. Let's take it from bar 24. So then when I quit doing that job and I started writing art for art's sake, commissions for real orchestras to write music, then I learned, I had the time to learn all this stuff. Well, opera is the most fun because it's the biggest. And I've learned that I actually can climb the big mountain. It turns out an old dog can learn new tricks. Tell you a little story. One day we were on the tour back in the day, and it was the day we got a phone call. Guys, you're rich. Took ourselves down to 47th Street Manny's, the big music store, and we just bought everything inside. I got that Stratocaster, I got this Roland amp here, and very importantly, this Space Echo, the chorus. Sting and Andy got, the Taurus bass pedal, just all the shit. And we took this truckload of new gear out to Long Island to my father's place for the sound check from hell. And they were playing with their new bass amps and the new bass, and I'm on drums supposedly, but I had put an echo on the snare drum just because, I want to play with the toy. And so was born, from that afternoon at my father's place, a whole delay line vocabulary. This here is the amp I had in college, recorded my first records on it, Clark Kent. Then I lost it for many years, and I was brokenhearted. It was in an old curved air flight case. But what's in all is, whoa, there it is! I burst into tears. Because at a certain point, you're chasing the new technology, and you want the latest stuff. But at a certain point, you realize that Marshall stack, it just has been there. This thing has played some blues, tears, sweat, toil, hearts broken, to the music that came out of that thing. These antiques, I mean, they've been around, they have sung. And so the old gear really gets me. That Marshall stack there took me ages to find. I could have carried that thing up the stairs to Kluk's Cleek in London, supporting Deep Purple or something, Cool thing about fretless is you can hit a note and then renegotiate. As I said to Yo-Yo Ma, there's a lot of mojo in instruments, a lot of voodoo, a lot of feeling of where it's been, and because music's like that, it's not, I'm not superstitious or anything like that, but I will allow a little bit of voodoo when it comes to musical instruments. Sting gave me this, horrendously out of tune, and just it's the same strings, E, A, D, G, B, E, but wrong octaves. So any chord you played, it just changes the voicing of it, and that same old E chord, it's way out of tune, turns into a completely different chord. Very cool. His daughter Coco, this is her axe of choice. This guitar here has a sticker in there, which identifies it as being from apostrophe 98. And that's not 1998, that's 1898, in the year of our Lord. That is a very old guitar, domestic grade guitar, but every guitarist who walks in here and they genuflect before it, yes, and then they play upon it. And when they do, I could swear we all agree that there is something, it's a crap domestic grade guitar, but there's a little something to it. A little bit out of tune. But hey, we're into jazz now, so who cares? This is the breakthrough of jazz. I did a jazz tour one year, the jazz festivals of Europe. What fun that was. Jazz is more fun to play than it is to listen to. Jazz fans are the best fans. They will sit there and take it. All the stuff that us pop musicians had to learn to discipline ourselves to be, as drummers, support of the song, support of, you're a piece of one thing. In jazz, you just go for it all the time. And people pay money to be subjected to this complete onslaught of every chop you ever wanted to play, but were too, disciplined to play. But the problem that I have with jazz is not the tradition of jazz, the thing itself known as jazz. With jazz, 90% of it's bullshit. That 10% that isn't is worth it. It really is something. It gets to a place that music aspires to get to. But 90% of it, I'm here to tell you, I've been playing music for 60 years, and you can't fool me with that stuff. By the way, all you jazz fans out there, he's doing his best. A valiant effort to defend your honor. You're not getting laid. You're hardly getting paid. Definitely an upgrade to any conversation to dump on jazz. And I found all the chrome, which had been removed, because back in the day when men were men and bass players were fucking bass players, they used to pick. Any dinner party can be enlivened by dropping such a comment as, well, the problem with jazz musicians is that they all suck. When
was the last time you played a Holiday Inn?
A guy can dream.